Thank you for choosing Neighborhood Radio. From the block, join the Discord in the link below. Thank you for listening. Welcome to the Neighborhood Radio. I'm Rick is Ugly with
Zeke Lanham.
And today we're interviewing Adam Demirjian. Did I pronounce that right? From Brave Little Abacus. Capris. Happy to have you on.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, no problem. How's your Wednesday night been?
Oh, it's been great. I just made dinner and yeah, I'm just hanging. I had today off, so no complaints.
The days off always hit. Is it your first one or your second?
My first.
There you go.
So I'm not. I'm feeling good. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you do for work?
I work at a record store. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's got to be.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, it's a good time. Pretty low pressure. You're around what you love.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Are you working at one of the record stores that did a Sufjan Stevens listening party or?
We did not do one of those. We had a Mitski listening party a
couple
weeks ago.
That would have been
yeah, it was neat. Yeah, we do those. Those are becoming really, really popular. And we've done a few. We did one for like the newest Paramore record. A ton of people came out to that. That was wild.
How long have you been working there?
It'll be 5 years in November, so a little while.
Dang, that before record store. That's gotta be really awesome.
Yeah, I work with great people, and it's a good time. So.
Yeah, when I was like a teenager, I really wanted to work in a record store, but we only have one where I live, and it's shit.
Oh no!
If it's not like 80s hip hop or like Pink Floyd, it doesn't exist to the people that run.
Yeah, if I wanted to work at a record store, it'd have to be the electronics section of Walmart. So.
Oh no! Yeah, I'm lucky. I live in Boston, so there's a good amount around here. So.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah. Do you get like, as a record store employee, do you ever get the opportunity to purchase like highly anticipated releases like beforehand? Or...
Not early, no. Those rules are pretty strict, but I mean, there's definitely perks like, being able to like, have the advantage of getting something before it sells out or special order things. Like that's pretty cool. So yeah. But records are expensive nowadays, so
don't even get me started on that. I've just like literally in the last 3 months gotten back into collecting records, and record prices have pretty much doubled since I got out of the hobby.
It's really dangerous. Yeah, I mean, I've been buying records on and off for a decade plus, and I don't know how anyone can do it now because like LPs that used to be like, I don't know, $20 are all double. It's like
literally I have Dummy by Portishead on vinyl, and I paid $30 for that brand new back in 2016, and literally went to the record store recently to look at some records, and they had Dummy, exact same store that I bought Dummy from back in 2016, and then they were selling it for $55. Same pressing, same like everything as the one that I paid $30 for back in 2016.
No special edition like color, nothing.
No.
Yeah, they just cost more than ever. It's very wild. Yeah.
That's why I've sort of gotten back into CDs as a.
Oh, same. Yeah, I do a lot of CD purchases nowadays, and I love digitizing them and having like a FLAC library. Like that's a great hobby. Like great way to listen to.
Especially like it's a lot more space efficient.
For sure.
What I like about it. Like I have a shelf of like 120 CDs, and like I could probably only fit like 30 or 40 records on that same.
Yeah.
On that same shelf, so.
It's it's too much for me to keep track of, honestly. Like if I get something on physical, it's got to be something super special. I can't get like everything I listen to on it, especially again the space thing. Like, you got to have like a dedicated space in your room, like bookshelves, even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got
Yep.
like a fully dedicated like shelf in my room for my.
It's a commitment for sure. And then when you move, it's like good luck, especially after like a full life of collecting stuff, you know.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
What's the
So,
oldest record you have in your collection? Like the oldest in terms of your and when it came to your possession.
I think that would be a copy of Doolittle by the Pixies. And I think I bought it when I was 14. I was in New York City and there was a Virgin Megastore that probably doesn't exist. I doubt it exists anymore in Times Square. And I bought it and didn't have a record player. And I think it was like the first time I realized that LPs were still like manufactured. And I was with a friend, and speaking of like prices changing so much, I think I probably paid about like $16 or $18 for it. And I remember I carried it around on this whole like vacation, just being like, I bought a record. Like, I wonder what I'm gonna do with it. And then I think it was like the next year I like thrifted a turntable and got a little bit more into it. But that's probably my personal oldest.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, Pixies are a great band. It's probably not a bad choice for a first.
No, I mean, a lot of people's first picks are like those whatever's like was the cringy teen thing back in the day. So
yeah. Yeah, I was fortunate. I mean, that record was really special to me dating back to when I was like 12, so it was still on the mind, you know, in high school. So
my first ever physical music purchase was Bangarang by Skrillex. For
nice.
my 11th 10th. Oh, actually no, it would have been my 10th birthday. I think I got Bangarang. My aunt bought me Bangarang by Skrillex on CD.
That's awesome.
And I was really depressed because when I was about 13 or 14, my mum sold her car, and I forgot to take the CD out of the out of the she had one of those like six CD slot cars, and I just forgot it was in there.
Damn.
Somebody got real lucky when they bought that. That
was a really cool find. Oh, sick, a CD.
Yeah, I actually my car that I bought recently had someone's like personal mixtape that they had burnt onto a CD.
Wait, really?
Yeah, it's just a bunch of country music.
Also really cool.
Bought it. The person who owns the car, I actually, when I found the CD and it was full of country music, I said to the car yard, I was like, "Oh, what kind of person did you get the car off?" And they said they got it from a farm. So I was like, that tracks that.
Have you been able to find the music online?
I've never really. I've literally listened to it once, being like, "No, I don't like country," and it's just I probably could look it up.
I think that'd be something very interesting to look into.
Yeah, pretty interesting.
So yeah, see, my first album had to be, I think, the Yellow album from SpongeBob. I think that was the first album I ever had.
That's a classic.
There are some genuine bangers.
Sorry to change the topic a little bit, but Adams, one of our audience members just asked where the name Brave Little Abacus came from.
Yeah, it's a direct reference to the animated film Brave Little Toaster. And we just changed the noun on it. When we were figuring out a band name, we went back and forth a lot. You know, we wanted to like reference some older media that was like important to us, and that movie was really, really special for us. So that kind of was immediate. And the whole movie's kind of about how like the toaster might not really be useful to its original owner anymore. And we just thought Abacus was a great example of something that no one needed anymore, because calculators and computers, you know. So it's kind of, that's where it came from, I guess.
I like that.
Yeah. I mean, we just ended up calling it BLA all the time, because who wants to say Brave Little Abacus 100 times a day?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
BLA.
Yeah, and I've noticed like on some releases it's the Brave Little Abacus, and on some it's just Brave Little Abacus.
It's funny. The we always preferred it without the, but then when you say it, you kind of like people just end up saying the. Hilariously, the only other band I know that had that problem for a while was Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah.
So I always laugh at that like I have childhood Red Hot Chili Pepper CDs that say the or don't say the. So yeah, I don't know. It's a fine problem to have. I always liked it without the personally, but
I see.
Yeah.
So like, so is there nothing? Is there not like an actual like official? You just say you like it without it.
I mean, the band's been dead and gone for 11 years.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know some people were bummed out when there was like I know people that use Last FM were really upset because some of their Scrabbles had the and some didn't, and they wanted to like consolidate them.
Last FM people
like,
are.
I don't know.
Last FM users, as a Last FM user, Last FM users are a different breed.
No, they're serious about it.
I got so pissed off recently because the Avalanches their album Since I Left You they've replaced it on Spotify with Since I Left You 20th Anniversary.
Oh wow!
So and I literally already had like 1.5 thousand Scrabbles. I literally had probably close to 2,000 Scrabbles on that album, and now it's just ended. I just can't get any more Scrabbles on it because there's only Since I Left You 20th Anniversary edition now.
So sad.
See, that never would have worked for me. When I was in high school, one of my favorite things was like finding as many different releases of an album at a time, because I liked when I looked at my phone seeing a different album cover whenever I listened to a song. Yeah. So like I'd purposefully get like, for instance, like Nirvana or something. They have 50 mixes of their songs. I'd purposely try to get each different cover just because they're slightly different. I always liked having a little bit different of the album cover. That's another thing when it comes to collecting physicals. I wish I could, because that's another thing. Just looking at the art is really nice.
Yeah, like different single releases.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
Maddie, Maddie, who is listening at the moment, asked, what would you describe your music as to someone who's never heard it?
I guess it depends on what project they were listening to, but I tend to lean towards just like honest, experimental, loud. Yeah, because I'm not really good with like describing genre. I find it like really difficult. I know for some people that really works, but it never really has worked for me.
Could you boogie to it?
Could you boogie to it? Some of it, I think you could boogie to.
There's some sad boogie moments. I could definitely like would get down on a dark night where I'm just like, yeah, I'm getting into this. Like on blah blah blah, I would definitely dance to that. Yeah. Another audience member, Wes, he said he's always had questions about the Just Got Back from Discomfort cover. Do you want to talk about it? Do you have any specific questions, Wes? Because where was the picture taken? Like what was the context of that?
So I don't know where the picture was taken. I know some fans of that record have tried to find it, and some believe that it was in Burlington, Vermont, which is totally possible. It's a picture my mom took of my dad when they were driving across the country, right after they got married.
Okay.
Because they moved from around Boston to Washington State. It's possible.
I'm from Washington State. Hey.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, they were. They moved to Tacoma because my dad was stationed out there. So I mean, it's funny because like the folks who have felt like they've really pinpointed it, it's a pretty vague image of like an auto body somewhere in America. It could be a lot of places, I think, but I love that it's mysterious to people. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a big fan of the image. If I knew that record would reach the amount of people that it has, I don't know if I would have just chosen such a random picture of my 20-year-old dad for its album cover without anything else on it. But I love that image, so I do stand by it. I think it's a really striking image. So it's cool. Yeah. I just don't know if I would have put a picture of my dad on the cover of a record.
Was it just an off the cuff thing?
Totally. Yeah, it was a totally off the cuff thing, and our audience and the way we functioned back in 2010 was so small scale. There wasn't any part of me that, was thinking about like marketing or what the album cover would mean to more people. It was just totally for ourselves and like the select amount of people we knew would hear and see it. So but yeah, I like that on the topic of the album cover, it is amazing to me how many memes get made like around it. And,
I don't think I've ever seen a meme.
Hold up. There's one I've seen before. I've seen one. I'm gonna post it in the chat.
This up. That sounds hilarious.
I
think there's a lot. Yeah.
It's a 4-panel. It's a 4-panel one, and there's a cutout of hey, I'm Justin Bieber, and some girls who seem unexcited, and then there's the cover. It's like, oh my god, cover of the cult classic 2010 EU album.
That yeah, the ones that get me, like someone sent me like I've never played Minecraft, but you can be my dad in Minecraft, I guess. It's just like a little like Minecraft version of him like in a hoodie.
Oh, I see.
And it just says Adam Demirjian's dad. Like that freaked me out once.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So it's that's a cool legacy to have, right? I guess.
How did they feel about being the cover of the album, and how do they feel about it now?
I don't think he cares because he's not like on the internet in any capacity. My parents didn't really like Brave Little Abacus at all.
Damn.
So I don't really think. I don't know. I think they kind of liked our last record. But yeah, I mean it's not really the type of music that they would choose to listen to. So
yeah. I mean, like I'm gonna be honest, like even for me personally, like fully speaking honestly here, I didn't really like Brave Little. Like I have a friend who's been trying to get me into Brave Little Abacus since 2017, and I never really got into it that much until I went through a really bad breakup. And then I listened. I remember my friend telling me that it was like a breakup album, and so I was like, I'm gonna give this another spin now that I'm in that kind of headspace. And then I listened to it and it just clicked, and I'm like, okay, yeah, like this is real shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's really like it's. I'll be the first to say it's like challenging music. Like whenever someone is just like, I've had people come to me and being like, oh, I like can't get into that. I'm just like,
it's just the cacophony of like instruments and everything is it's a lot. And I think it wasn't like for me just listening to it like without being in a specific mindset. I was just like, man, like this is it's a lot. But then as soon as I was in sort of the mindset that I personally feel, I guess, is being conveyed through the music. I'm sorry if I'm off base with my interpretation of the album or its themes or whatever. But as soon as I was in a mindset that I felt matches what the album is going for, then I immediately just understood, and it's become like one of my favorite albums. So.
I mean, sometimes that's what it takes. Everything, you experience things in context, So it's I can relate to that with a lot of things for sure.
Well, I think one for me, because I was never really. I'm not. I like emo music, but I'm not. I never had like internet or anything. So anything that was a local thing that became big on the internet, I didn't get it until 2017. And even then, I was more into like hip hop in terms of discovering music. So I wasn't made aware until this year. But what really spoke to me is like the writing of the lyrics. It helps me connect with it immediately, and I start to understand like all the surrounding elements. And that's one thing I always like to ask people is, especially with something like as ambitious as what you guys were doing, what came first in like the process? Like, did you just have these songs that were written for a long time, or did you have the actual music composed and ready and needed something and it inspired you? Like I'm very interested in that.
Yeah, that's a great question. With that band, it was a lot of like simultaneous work. Like we would be like I'd be writing music and then collaborating with the other two members like on music and have a bunch of lyrical ideas, and then depending on where the music went, the lyrics would change with it. It was very, very few times that the lyrics came first. A lot of it was music writing, lyrics on top. but
Yeah.
at the same time, like I never, especially with Just Got Back, I never struggled with writing the lyrics. They would come really quickly as the music was made.
I love like how dense the lyrics are. Like on that album.
It's my favorite type of writing. It feels like you're just speaking to the music. It's just I love it. It's really well put together.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
I one thing I guess I've wanted to like ask about. So Pile No Pile Pile is my favorite song off that album. And I find the lyrics like they're very like there's a lot of big words and a lot of you know, like I guess very almost like intellectual. And what I sort of get from this song is so something that I do a lot is like intellectualizing my feelings, which is like I'm focusing too much on the logic behind them rather than trying to actually just process them as feelings. And that song makes me feel that way. Like it's this like very raw, like emotional song, but you're still trying to use like all the big words and like all the like logic and everything, even though you've clearly like experienced something painful and raw. And I'm not sure if that was your intention, but that's just the way it sort of comes across to me, and like why I love that song so much.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, I was I'm a pretty scatterbrained person. Like I think I overthink a lot of things, and I think about a lot of things at the same time. And
Yeah.
that song is definitely that's on full display. I think
Yeah.
I'm pretty like, but then that's also kind of what the song's about too. So yeah, I don't know. I can relate to what you're saying a lot. Yeah, when you kind of instead of just feeling through something, you over intellectualize it and are trying to
Yeah.
explain things away. Yeah.
Yeah, and so for me, it's like it's like what the song feels like is very raw, very like broken. But then you read the lyrics, and it's like I just can't pile aesthetic perceptive dilemma. Like, you know, it's not. It's like kind of more of a dense line that like is a little bit at odds with the raw feeling of the song, like almost.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that was so sorry. That was just something
No.
I sort of wanted to share with like my personal experience, whatever. And you know, while we're just talking about the lyrics, like I just thought, yeah, like that songwriting there is just awesome. And
Yeah, I appreciate that.
yeah. So obviously like the Brave Little Abacus was like a very emotionally charged project, I guess, like very. But whereas like with your newer projects, like me and Capris, it's a lot like more like chilled out. Like I guess it's like, what would you say was sort of the path to that?
Well, I think a lot of what Brave Little Abacus did was sort of direct expression, like unedited, unfiltered. Like everything moved very, very quickly and was very, very like reactionary. So, I mean, even to the point where there's lyrics in Brave Little Abacus songs that are like such direct references to a bad thing that I maybe went through when I was 17 or 18, and then I would just write it directly. And maybe there's even like a name in a lyric or a reference that no one could ever possibly decipher. And you know, in a way, it was songwriting, but it really was like it was pure catharsis. And as I got older, I got a lot more interested in the mix of catharsis and songwriting, or catharsis and arrangement. And I think you know, I retreated a little bit and still do. I don't put everything on display as much. You know, a great example with, you know, Brave Little Abacus that I don't, you know, talk about that often whenever I'm being asked, but I put a lot out there into that band that I sometimes kind of wish I didn't. And now that I'm in this position and I'm older, and you know, so many more people have heard it, you can't take it back, you know, like. And so some of that that catharsis that was so necessary at the time, you know, it's a little difficult when it's your own, and you've once you've let it out, you can't take it back. So I
Mm.
think so some people I think feel like, you know, in the progression of the writing, things have gotten more guarded or like a little bit less direct, and that's true. Like that's absolutely true.
Mm.
But my experience as a musician, I still use music for the same coping reasons that I did when I was
Mm.
younger. I just use it very differently, you know.
Yeah, no, that was like, yeah, I suppose, yeah, once I got into Brave Little Abacus and I started exploring like your work post the band and whatever, I just thought it was like, I mean, I always love to see like a lot of clear artistic growth. It's always really interesting to see and cool to see that someone didn't just stay like in the same place, particularly over a time span like 11 years.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I have to give credit to the Brave Abacus as a project as well. Um, it was really, really dependent on its other two members.
Mm-hmm.
Zach Kelly Arnett and Andrew Ryan were such intense contributors to that band. I could never possibly be in another project that sounded anything like it without them. And it's a real credit to what they brought to the table too.
Yeah. Yeah, no, because I think, yeah, like there's a lot of like bands like The Prodigy, an example I think of that just tried so hard to sound the way that they did 20 years ago. And yeah, and I just think it was really cool, sort of exploring, yeah, like your future projects and seeing you like find your voice as an artist and try to like, you could tell that you were growing as a person and exploring different things and.
Yeah. That's. I mean, I think you can only really hope, you know, that's where it's a continued journey. I mean, I always say like, I'm such a lifer when it comes to music that it can't possibly be like duplicated because I'm just always like on to the next thing. Even with what I listen to, I'm always just like, what's the next thing? The next thing, you know, like.
Yeah, and I think you've like throughout like like all of your different projects, you've done a great job at not falling into the trap of having success in an area and then trying to just replicate that.
Yeah, I mean, success is cool. I mean, I would love some more success, but I also, you got to be true to what you want to do. And yeah, it would be
so much.
Yeah, it would be very weird to attempt to make music that sounded like Just Got Back at 32 years old. I would have a tough time doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, like I'm glad that you didn't, because I love that album, but it's very much obviously a moment in time that you are like sort of far beyond, and it's cool to continue to hear you continue to express yourself in like other ways, and in a way I kind of like it's satisfying for me to hear such an emotionally charged record from anyone, and then to like, it makes me feel good, I guess, to see that they've been able to get out of whatever space they were in when they made that record. And
100%. Yeah, I like to use it, especially when I'm talking to like younger people about it, as kind of like a lesson of like, I can say with full certainty that when I was making Just Got Back, I did not see the other side of how I felt about my place in the world. I was like, I did not see another outcome, and I was wrong. And a lot of times when you're in some of like your darkest spots, like your read on it's incorrect. And so it's if that is something that people can take away from that record, that means a lot to me. So that's good.
Yeah. So like what music would you say like you're into at the moment? Like what's like influencing you?
I'm going through this crazy Blur kick.
There's someone in the server who is that's their favorite band. That's their favorite band, and they do everything they can to make sure people are getting into Blur. So they would love hearing that.
I've just pinged them in chat. There's a member of this server. Army City, world's biggest Blur stan.
Nice.
So
have you always been a fan, or you only just recently get into them?
I've always been a surface level fan. I didn't like grow up listening to them. I've loved Gorillaz since Gorillaz started.
Yeah.
Being I was like the perfect age for Gorillaz. I was like
Mm.
I think I was either 10 or 11 when like the first single came out, like when Clint Eastwood came out, and the music video was on like top 20 video countdown, and I was just like, I was the age where I still loved cartoons, so it's like you combine cartoons and a band, like I was there. But yeah, Blur was like, I mean the thing about Blur was like they just weren't that huge in the States when I was a kid, other than like song 2. Like that song was in commercials and stuff, but
yeah, I think that Britpop thing is like very much like late 90s UK, and if you weren't there, I think it can be sometimes
very
hard to
centralized.
understand.
Yeah, and like I grew up in a big Oasis household, so I feel like the Demirjians had chosen their side, like,
Yeah.
But yeah,
And-
so it's just like it's
Yeah.
they're great though. Every record's different. I love that.
What's your favorite album from them?
Right now it would be Park Life at the moment, but I feel like that could totally change because I really, really like Modern Life is Rubbish as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've never I mean I've always been like probably most people sort of my age. Like I'm 22. I reckon it would be a similar experience for most people where they've always known about Gorillaz, and Blur has just been kind of like, oh yeah, like it's got the guys from Gorillaz in it. But I think recently, particularly because they've just dropped a new album and whatever, I think recently more people have started to dive back into Blur a little bit, and I think like that Britpop era is such a moment in time, and I think that's why Radiohead have had so much longevity, because they managed to avoid falling into that like label.
Absolutely, yeah.
Being a band from around that time, it would have been very easy for Radiohead to continue making songs like Creep and just be another 90s bands like Oasis and Blur and whatever, but they would manage to drop OK Computer and then Kid A and then have longevity beyond being a UK 90s band.
Yeah, and they just kept pushing. I mean, one of my favorite like little weird facts about Radiohead, if it's even true, is like when they were working on Kid A, the band was kind of like upset with one another because of the direction. And I love that, like, at the end of the day, it was necessary to make this whole new sound. And so, but I sometimes I think it's hard, like having progress is difficult, but it's really worth it.
It actually astounds me that Radiohead have never had a lineup change. Like that at no point.
Wait, never.
At no point. No, never. They've had the exact same 5 people, and it astounds me that at no point was a member like, I joined a rock band, not an electronic band. Like I'm out. Like and I think it speaks to their tightness as a unit, as a songwriting unit. That they have made so many different styles and everything, and to this day is still working together. And like just talking about Kid A, it kind of astounded me. So this movie came out last week, The Creator, which is set in 2070, and there's a scene in that film that uses everything in its right place.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, it just sort of shows how insane Kid A was, that they can use a song from 2000 in a scene set in 2070, and it doesn't feel out of place or like dated or anything for that aesthetic that the film is like sort of going for.
Yeah, I mean that record does not sound old. Like it just got, like I that is an example of a record that I think will forever sound like it just could have come out yesterday. Which is, I love. That's one of my favorite things.
Are you much of an Arctic Monkeys fan?
I wouldn't call myself an Arctic Monkeys fan, but I'm not
against them.
I'm not a fan. When their first record came out, I got it immediately, and I really, really, really loved it. I was probably a sophomore in high school, so my second year of high school or third year of high school, and I'll never forget they did like an MTV2 like live session, and they were just so tight, and they reminded me of like the Jam, and they were just like heavy, and I loved it. And then I didn't pay any attention. Like after their lineup kind of, it just became like the frontman's project. Once it wasn't really like a band, I didn't pay much attention. I have heard some of the later stuff since, like AM and another record that I really liked, but I didn't listen to them as they came out. I didn't pay much attention.
Yeah.
I loved that first one though. I like that record is so nostalgic for me. Like just because I would listen to it like in the halls of my high school and just feel like so excited, you know.
Yeah, I know for like a lot of like music nerds that tend to reject mainstream bands and whatever, that they always that debut album from them is always seen as like the exception, that like you're like allowed to enjoy as like a pretentious music nerd.
I like to consider myself not a pretentious music nerd, but I don't know. Maybe I am.
No, as no, it's just funny. Yeah, as someone who has been in those sorts of like online groups since I was about 15. I just thought it was always interesting to me that like that album was something. Yeah, like everyone was like, yeah, like Arctic Monkeys debut is so good, but then if you liked any of their other albums, you'd get shit on.
Yeah, I was just listening to too weird of music. Like that's a band that maybe this doesn't happen anymore because this was pre-Spotify, so like it's a little different now. Everyone knows when a record comes out, but there's a slew of Arctic Monkeys records that I just didn't know came out. Like when I look at their discography now and I see like a year next to one of them, I'm like, I'm like, oh, I have no recollection of that happening in 2014. You know, like, but I got to go back. I'll have to go back. You know.
No, I was kind of the same with Arctic Monkeys. So there's a server member who's in chat at the moment, called Maddie, who is a massive Arctic Monkeys fan, and she got me to listen to one of their albums, and I just looked at it and I had no idea that album even ever came out. So yeah, no, I definitely feel you on that.
Favorite Worst Nightmare. That's the other one I liked that one the first time I heard it.
That album was pretty good. It was a lot sort of rockier and more like, what's the word? Like it just had more oomph to it than I was sort of expecting. When I've always known them as this like sort of indie rock, like kind of a like poppy group. So
yeah.
Speaking of guilty pleasure music that'll get you shot, what's some other artist picks that you listen to that you would consider a guilty pleasure, at the very least in a pretentious sphere?
Oh, I probably a lot of things, because I don't how do I say, I mean, I don't know. I just listen to music, like a lot of music. So it's like I like a lot of old music. I like I love the Rolling Stones. Like I listen to like
that's
you know, like one of my all-time favorite records is Exile on Main Street by Rolling Stones, and I meet a lot of people that wouldn't even give that record like the time of day. So I don't know. I don't believe in guilty pleasures though.
I agree.
I fully agree too. Yeah, it's like music.
Yeah. My taste is the best taste. I don't care what anyone else has to say.
One of our audience members, Wes, wants to ask, where does Adam's love for Saint Anger by Metallica come from?
Oh, okay. That's a great question. All right, so I'll try to answer this real fast. So, number one, everyone has an opinion on that record. And even if it says whatever of an opinion, as they think the snare tone is bad, you've at least thought about it. And that makes it an incredible piece of art just then and there. Number two, that record has a whole movie made about the making of it and virtually the demise of that band, Some Kind of Monster. Happens to be one of the greatest music documentaries ever, so that makes that record even better. And then third, I just like that record.
Yeah.
I like the production. I like how intense and brash it was. And the thing is that that came out, I was like 11 years old, and I was hearing Frantic as a lead single on rock radio, like on a boombox in my room. Totally different experience than listening to it on YouTube and reading a bunch of comments about how bad the snare drum sounds. For me, it was just a new Metallica album, and I was a kid. And no one can ever take that away from me. It was so fucking exciting.
That's it.
Like,
That's it. Yeah. There's nothing worse than like growing up and I mean I wouldn't say it's nothing worse, but like growing up and gaining internet access and Googling something you love and finding out that everyone hates it.
yeah. And also like I won't rant about, Metallica forever, but see, Metallica is a great example for me of like that band's really important to me, and their music, even when it's not what I want it to be, I love them as individuals, and I love what they've accomplished as musicians. So I don't really look at records that way. Like my favorite band of all time is The Replacements, and a lot of people think that they've written some of the worst songs of all time. I'll be the first to admit that, but I like it about them. Great, there's not so great, there's everything in between. So yeah, like with Metallica, it's like, yeah, have they put out stuff I don't like as much as Master of Puppets? Obviously. They have like 15 records, like
dude, I feel that to the bone. There's this weird thing where people like act like having such a big discography, like it's just natural that you're gonna find something you don't like especially over that long of an activity, like since the 80s. Like that's not small. That's it's a really big feat.
There was one thing I wanted to say just while the Replacements were brought up. The text, like the way that the text is done on For Those Who Think You, from me and Capris reminds me of Pleased to Meet Me from the Replacements.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I think it's a very similar typeface for sure. Yeah,
like the like sort of jiggly way that the letters are placed and whatever. Like I'm like so I guess I want to ask, now that I know that that's your favorite band of all time, is that like intentional thing or just something that's
absolutely absolutely
cool.
Well, speaking of like older music, and you saying you're really into that, I think that's a good question for you. What's a song that not many people have heard, or just no one, it seems to be forgotten by the general culture of things that you really do like?
Oh, that's tough. That's really tough. I'm trying to think. Oh, I guess I'll I got one. The record Surfacing by Sarah McLachlan. That is
Sarah
like
McLachlan, the goat.
That was like the biggest pop record of 1997, and the record sold so many copies, so many singles, and now I feel like there's an entire generation of people that only talk about her because the song Angel is in like like Save the Animals like commercials. And it gets totally like that totally steamrolls the fact that record is perfect start to finish. So I don't know, that's my little PSA.
I think that's a really important like comment on like pop music and how it's like looked at over the years. Like the fact that it can change over one thing just because just the one like 10-second clip and the entire like legend and history of them is misremembered or just forgotten.
Yeah, and she's like a wild example too, because she put out great records. She started Lilith Fair, which was a world tour of all non-male artists who were completely like fed up with their place in the industry. She was such an important figure of her time, and I feel like it's just gotten a little bit muddied over the years. So that would be my weird answer to that one.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I love Sarah McLachlan.
No, that was a good answer.
Her song "Silence" with Delirium. There's a remix.
Oh, The remix, yeah.
The Tiesto In Search of Sunrise remix of that is like one of my favorite dance songs like of all time. If I ever like in my something I've kept a list of since I was about 12 is like if I ever got the opportunity to DJ, like I have a list of songs that I would put in my mix.
Nice.
And that song is definitely in there.
Yeah.
Um,
Very cool.
So following up from that, I guess Maddie wants to know if you were to recommend any album for someone to listen to in its entirety, what would it be?
Scrambles by Bomb the Music Industry.
Bet. Scrambles?
Yeah.
What kind of genre? What kind of music is it?
Do you know Jeff Rosenstock?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's his old band.
Okay.
They were. Some people would call them a ska band. They were like
I was about to say, is it like a ska like type?
There's ska elements. They were just like really experimental punk rock. But yeah, Scrambles. I mean, there'd be others too, but that one really comes to mind. Just as a totality, like taking an hour out of your day to experience that, especially if it's the first time. That's like that's going to be a pretty moving experience, I'd say.
All right, everybody at home, listen to Scrambles by Bomb the Music Industry.
Alrighty. So the next question from Wes is, who thought of putting the Sonic jumps in the blah blah blahs?
It would probably be me. I was big into getting video game samples in the songs. Very much so.
I'm exactly the same. I feel you on that.
Yeah, it was a little bit of like a Pandora's box when we were young. Like we did it, once, and then all of a sudden it was like we could probably do this all the time, like as often as possible.
So, I think it's so interesting because you don't even like it's not even just like a soundtrack pick; it's a sound effect and how it's incorporated into that. I really like that.
Yeah.
I've been playing Resident Evil lately, and I don't know if you've ever played Resident Evil, but there's a character called Albert Wesker, and he has a few quotes that I've been incorporating into some of my songs lately.
Oh, awesome!
So yeah, I totally feel you on that. Now my next question was, I'm personally like a big emo music fan, particularly like I love a lot of newer artists, and a lot of these newer artists from what we call the fifth wave of emo list Brave Little Abacus as some of their biggest influences. So I was wondering whether you were into any newer artists from the newer like emo scene.
Yeah, there's so many like there's so many great acts that have been seemingly are a part of that community. I think of like Paranewel, Asian Glow, Home Is Where, Your Arms Are My Cocoon, like the Hey I Love You, like these are really, really great bands. And I feel so fortunate to like whenever I hear our name up anywhere near any of these other bands, it really is like it's quite humbling.
Yeah,
it's actually really wild.
It's it's quite funny that you mentioned that because I think it's awesome that you are aware of all of those bands, because we interviewed Newfound Interest in Connecticut a while back, and they did not know any of those artists and had no idea that they had any impact on any new emo bands. So it's sort of really interesting to see like that you're obviously very tapped into that, and yeah, it's like an interesting contrast.
Yeah, I mean it's I don't know. I mean, I think it's I'm very fortunate people show me stuff. Like I feel like the first way I ever heard like To See the Next Part of the Dream was someone sending it to me and being like, have you heard this? So that was like very, very kind. But I mean, oh, sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, To See the Next Part of the Dream is my favorite album of all time.
Oh, it's perfect. It's a perfect
Yeah.
record. And I love the new one too. I just haven't spent as much
Yeah.
time with it.
Mhm.
But no, I was just gonna say. I mean, like, I don't want to sell myself short. I listen to a lot of music. I spend a lot of
Mm.
time looking for music.
Mm.
So for me, whether it's fifth wave, whether it's emo, whether whatever you want to call it, I would hope that I'd come across things that I liked because I'm
Mm.
always just looking for more things that are going to
Mm.
move me,
Yeah.
And all the bands that I mentioned, I would like without whether or not Little Abacus was mentioned anywhere near them. They're all just incredible
Mm.
musical projects.
Mhm.
Like the first
Yeah.
time I heard Glass Beach, I was like,
Mm.
"There's no way that my old band inspired this because this is so good and
Mm.
ahead of where we
Mm.
were." So, but yeah, I mean, I always want to hear the next thing,
Mm.
and the internet makes that very easy. So I would hope that everyone
Yeah.
takes advantage of that.
What's your favorite Parannoul song?
Mm,
Sorry,
that's
Rick. I know
tough.
you probably
You're
don't know
good.
Parannoul, but
It's probably the last track on To See the Next Part of the Dream.
oh,
I mean,
I can feel my heart touching you.
I can feel my heart
Yeah.
touching you. Yeah, the for a long time it was analog sentimentalism, and I still feel that way. But the closer is what when I think about that record, that's what plays in my head.
Yeah, no, every
I can
track on that
hear
album is a banger, but
absolutely.
that track, that closing track, like, definitely, I think that record, like, I feel like the closing track is such an important part of a record because it's your last impression.
Yeah.
And it colors in how you feel about the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, it could be 9 perfect songs, but if the 10th final song is garbage, then people still leave the record with a sour taste in their mouth.
100%. Yeah,
and
yeah.
I think that's what I love about that song is it really just, like, ends the record in that, like, emotional, like high. But yeah, my personal favorite's got to be White Ceiling. I love that song.
That sounds awesome. Yeah.
I love, like, the way the song basically completely falls apart in the last few minutes. And there's just all that screaming and all the clips from, like, the movies and TV shows and stuff that he puts in there. And
Yeah.
that wall of noise is just awesome. Anyway, I'm gonna stop because I could talk for 6 hours about that album. But yeah, I did notice that you followed him on Instagram, so that was I thought that was pretty cool. So
Oh yeah, big fan.
yeah.
One thing I wanted to comment on when you said, like, the music makes that so easy. Whenever someone says, like, "Oh, I miss music in the old days" or whatever, I always hate hearing that because I think music is in its peak every day that moves forward. Just the fact, like, again, like, just the fact that we have the internet, you can find, for the longest, it's always been a case of, the most innovative people are probably a band of 4 people with, like, 12 people who know about them, and they're doing something crazy that you don't know about. And back before it was super common to have so much culture on the internet and being shared through that, it was a lot of, whatever's local or whatever's getting on the radio and stuff. And I think, nowadays it's a million times easier to find those really specifically really unique new sounds. And I think that's a good
like
thing.
Like, talking about, like, the internet and technology making music easier and whatever. Sorry, just to go back to Parannoul, but something that blew my mind with his music was the way that it's all MIDI. Like, that whole album is MIDI, and it like blew my mind. And there would be purists that would be like, "Oh, like, that album's shit. Like, he didn't, like, play a guitar or touch a drum kit." But, like, I personally think it's, like, crazy as hell and shows the awesome spot that we're in with how accessible and easy music is in 2023. That someone can sit in their bedroom and make an album like that without the ability to go to a studio or record, like, 100 different instruments. And
totally, yeah. And even the way it was distributed too. I mean, it wasn't marketed. It just organically reached a lot of people that were moved by it, and then by word of mouth got to where it was, which I love because I'm not a huge fan of the way a lot of music is marketed nowadays. Sometimes it gets a little bit tedious, but no, I agree. I mean, I think it's all a balance. Like for me, I think it's probably the best time in the history of the world to be a music listener. I think it's not necessarily the best time to be a musician. I
That's
think it's
no,
really
for
difficult.
sure. Yeah.
I think it's really difficult to be a musician in the current zeitgeist. But it's all in balance, you know. So, but yeah, in terms of accessibility, like Rick, what you're saying, like you know, getting the access to artists that you would never before. I mean, think about the list that we were just saying of artists that identify
Exactly.
as
Yeah.
like fifth wave. They're all from like different countries. Like I can, you know, simultaneously in the same span of a week, I probably discovered Weather Day, Asian Glow, Parannoul, you know, and then a band you know, probably from a million places in the US. That's a really unique position to be in. You know,
Yeah.
it's very cool.
No, I think that's like something people don't talk about enough is if you go back to like just using emo as a reference point. Like if you go back to first or second wave emo, it's probably like all the prominent bands from those scenes were probably from the same 3 towns in the US.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But then you get all the way to the fifth wave and Weather Days from Sweden, Asian Glow and Parannoul from Korea, like Home Is Where is from the US. Like it's just awesome to like have that network of artists who are all working together. Like every single one of those artists has collaborated with each other and released music together.
That's really awesome.
And none of them
it's
are from
it's crazy.
the same place. Yeah, and again, compared to like early emo, when all the prominent bands were probably all friends with each other and playing at each other's gigs, and so yeah.
I mean, it's funny too because the band of mine that we're like talking about, that was that's the world that we were in. You know, we were just like closed off, like we only existed where we lived, and I don't know what we existed now. I don't even know what would happen. Like I don't know. You know?
Yeah, that's something I've sort of noticed when I first sort of got into you guys and I dove a little bit into the internet. Was the majority of the stuff that existed online was courtesy of your personal friends. That were posting on Reddit. There wasn't really anyone outside of your circle that was sharing stuff to do with the band. So,
oh yeah, it was definitely just people we knew. Yeah, it was shocking. It was shocking as it started to switch, where it was like, oh, people are talking about it online that we don't know. You know what I mean? Like that. That was wild. But.
Yeah, no, it's like, and again, like when, because we like spoke to Newfound Interest in Connecticut a few weeks ago, and they sort of went through the same thing, and it's just really cool to see how many acts that didn't necessarily get their flowers at the time have just blown up into sort of cult status, and I think that's what I love the most about the internet is its penchant for rediscovering things, and even though obviously there's like a million artists out there that'll never get looked at, but I just love the fact that it has given a platform for if someone did make an album in 2002 that reached 5 people, and somehow someone gets lucky enough to find an old CD and they upload it, there is like a very real chance that album could actually like go somewhere 20 years later. If it was good enough at the time,
Yeah. What was that, like the Panchico record?
Yeah.
Like that is such a wild turn of events. Like absolutely wild.
Yeah.
Enlighten me on this Panchico CD or.
Oh, it's a band. Supposedly, what happened was this band from the early 2000s. They had an album called Death Metal, and it was purchased by someone in a thrift store, and they uploaded it to YouTube, and it had these great songs on it, but it was plagued with some disc rot, so it was kind of distorted. And then it just started to circulate more and more and more, and then they finally came forward, and a cleaner version got released. That's a real condensed version of it, but it virtually is just a band that no one would have ever have heard in a million years. Somehow was discovered by a lot of people on the internet, and now they're back and they're like a full-time project.
See,
Like, it totally, the internet totally
hell
changed
yeah.
the trajectory of their lives. Like, it's wild.
Yeah. I know that's how Newfound Interest in Connecticut got back up again as well, as their music sort of languished in obscurity for like years until someone messaged the lead singer, I think, and was like, "Hey man, like I just found this old CD. Do you mind if I upload it onto YouTube?" And the guy was like, "Yeah, like sure, like I don't care."
I don't know them. What is that band again?
So the Newfound Interest in Connecticut. So we interviewed their lead singer Matt, and their bass player Mark in here a few weeks ago. But they're like they're a crossover third wave, second wave emo band, I guess. Like they released an album in 2005, and it very much exists in the same space as Just Got Back from the Discomfort in terms of being an emo album from. It's almost 20 years old, but it's randomly got picked up sort of in the pandemic era, and has become a big influence. Like I know Asian Glow has listed that album as one of his main influences, and yeah, a lot of sort of fifth wave bands, have become very influenced by that record since it got picked back up.
And they're Canadian band, right?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and they also have like a bit of a post-rock slant to their music as well. So they're pretty cool. If you're not aware of them, I'd 100% recommend.
I can picture
checking them out.
I think I can picture like an album cover just from like seeing it. Like on
this is a good guess. I feel like what do you imagine the cover would be?
Are there trees on it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I can picture the cover. I just haven't listened to it.
That's awesome.
I gotta check that out.
Yeah, no, it definitely 100%. Like I think of it, I think of it in the same sentence as Just Got Back from the Discomfort in terms of being one of the seminal like lost media emo albums that have inexplicably like become cult classics like 10 years after 10 15 years after
Interesting. And you said they're back. They reformed.
No, they're back in terms of they've started an Instagram account and have been sharing a lot of archival like footage and stuff like that.
Cool.
And like they're very active on social media now. And they have their own Discord server for their fans to chat in and everything, but the actual band
they've all gone into their own things.
Yeah.
Got it.
But yeah.
Nice.
No, they're pretty cool. But yeah, anyway. So out of your sort of post Brave Little Abacus projects, do you have like a one that is your favorite?
I mean it would be me and Capris. We I mean we've been a band for quite a while now. And especially from a live perspective, especially before COVID, we were such a live band. We played out so often. And I find a lot of joy in that. It's just a real important part of my life. So I'd say it would be that for sure. But yeah, I don't know, just continuing to be a songwriter and getting a lot more into production over the years for sure.
Oh yeah.
Go
on.
Oh yeah, sorry.
I was just gonna say that reminded me of a question I wanted to ask you, like from something part of the conversation earlier. You said like how like a lot of that album and a lot of that project was from a very different time emotionally, and for you. Do you like that? I imagine like that'd be something like, let's say if you wanted to like you end up like performing that again. I'm assuming like that'd probably be pretty difficult to get out of you.
I think it would be really difficult. It's something that certainly has been discussed and has been considered whenever conversations have been had about that. I don't know what it would look like. I genuinely don't know. Your voice, like my voice has changed a lot over the years. the way that I play has changed, the way I perform. I don't know if Brave Little Abacus was to reunite and play some of that material. I think it would be really, really different. I don't know what people
Mm.
would think. And some of that would just be out of our control. It's like but yeah, it's a good question because it's certainly it's very particularly performed. So yeah, it'd be tough.
Yeah.
Do you like playing live more now than than back then?
I do because I think I'm a lot better at it now.
Makes
Brave,
sense.
Brave Little Abacus Live was very like sometimes it was really ramshackled, just kind of like let's see if we can get through this show. And me and Capris Live is a lot more in the moment, and we really kind of take our times with things. And I'm a lot more knowledgeable now about how to make the show even sound, like how to just how to and how to present yourself. So I don't know. Yeah, I definitely enjoy it more now than I did when I was young.
Yeah. One question I had was, so whenever I play Brave Little Abacus for my friends, one of the comments that I always get is, "Oh, this sounds like it could be from a musical." So, are you into musical theater? Is that something that was intentional, or is that just sort of like an accident?
I like musical theater. I grew up watching a lot of musicals. I was in some musical theater, but yeah, I definitely think I can see that. I can see that. It's very there's a
I think
lot
it's
of sort of
I think it's the really
oh
jingly like instrumentation in a lot of the tracks that
oh
gives
wow.
that
Okay, yeah.
gives that
I thought
feel.
maybe it was the over the top like vocals.
I mean,
But
maybe it probably could be a mix, but for me personally, like since people have started making that comment and I listen to it with that in mind, sort of what
yeah.
stands out to me is the feel of like a lot of the instrumentation with the piano and
Oh,
That
stuff.
I mean that could be it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Zach, our keyboardist, he did a lot of musical theater. He was like a musical theater star when we were in high school. So there's a connection for sure.
Yeah, no, I literally remember. So, because like I think as I mentioned earlier, like my whole circle of friends are all musical theater kids and are always doing
Yeah.
musicals. And I remember I picked them up once and I was listening to, let me see if I can remember specifically which track. I can't even remember. Maybe Can't Run Away. Anyway, and they hopped in the car and they're like, "Oh, what musical are we listening to?" Like they literally just straight away, "What musical are we listening to?" And I'm like, oh,
pretty good.
this isn't a musical. This is actually like an emo band.
Well, maybe
No,
it be an emo musical.
Yeah, it wasn't Can't Run Away. I can't remember what it was, but it was around that midpoint of the album.
Yeah.
That I was up to, but yeah. Anyway, so do you have like a favorite musical at all?
It would probably be Sound of Music, I would think.
Classic.
Yeah, that would probably be my favorite, especially just from like a nostalgic point of view. I was in a production of Pippin when I was really young.
Yo, I've seen that. I've seen Pippin live.
Yeah, that's a good show. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to think about it a little more. But Sound of Music's the first one that comes to mind. But yeah, musicals are crazy.
There's something to them.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think that's a funny genre though, of going back to talking about like saying you like something and a bunch of like music people being like, no, you can't like that. I feel like musicals get a bad rap.
Oh yeah, I think there's a certain it's just how it's.
Yeah, I mean like Hamilton.
How it's written is just. Yeah, it's so flamboyant in how it's played and how it's that structured with how like the lines being part of the play and everything.
I know a lot of people call Hamilton rap music for people who hate rap music.
Hamilton, I don't know Hamilton very well. I know what it is conceptually, but I haven't seen it. I haven't listened to it. I can imagine what you're saying though.
The thing that cracks me up about Hamilton though, is so one of the roles as Thomas Jefferson. And the actor of Thomas Jefferson is a guy called David Diggs.
Okay.
And he outside of like, and he is like now like a pretty mainstream celebrity, but his only real thing that he had done before being in Hamilton, and he still does it, is he's in like one of the most experimental harsh noise hip hop groups you will ever hear in your whole life. Like some of their songs, he's literally like rapping over like a Merzbow like esque beat, and it's always hilarious whenever, because again, being in a musical theater circles, and all my friends are like, "Oh my god, like David Diggs is like awesome," and I'm like, "Oh haha, like you should go check out his music that he does outside of Hamilton," and it's always like, and it's the most experimental, like hip hop you'll ever hear in like your whole life.
That's wild. What's the group's name?
Clipping.
Clipping.
Oh, I've seen those records. Okay,
yeah. Their covers are very iconic.
Yeah. But yeah, so it just always cracks me up. Like I almost feel like I'm pranking my friends whenever they say they love David Diggs, and I tell them to go listen to his music outside of Hamilton.
That's too funny. Yeah, I never would have known that connection. That's wild.
But yeah, and like that's like yeah, definitely. I feel like in a lot of ways people don't view musical theater as like real music.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard to. And again, I think that's part of what I like about Brave Little Abacus, even though it's not, again, probably it doesn't sound like it was intentional, but I think it bridges a lot of musical theater tropes with the way that this music is written, and I think bridges it into a much more like artistic environment. Like it does not surprise me at all that your pianist had done a lot of musical theater, because a lot of his playing is like so similar.
Yeah, I mean, he was coming from a very different background than most people in bands. He was playing contemporary classical music, and you know,
and so I think it's sort of really cool that like Brave Little Abacus, a lot of the piano on that album to me feels like it's taking something that if it was in a musical theater context, people would think of it as like very silly and lighthearted. And then like I don't mean that in like as a bad thing, but it just takes it and transplants it like into this new context. And I just think it's like really cool. To hear that style of playing like on a much more like serious, like artistic sort of record. So
I can see it for sure.
Yeah.
There's certain moments like throughout the record that like I feel like just kind of, you know, like you said, like the kind of brighter moments among it, like that's what reminds it or kind of gives that like musical like thought. One thing is again in the blah blah blahs is there's horns in it, but for like, you know, it sounds like, oh yeah, I got this really weird video game sample, and then it kind of sounds kind of familiar like emo music, and then it get those horns before the climax. With those horns, I'm pretty sure they're in the last track. And what was the orange slides? Which one is that one called? I can't.
Orange Blue Stripes.
Yeah.
Last one.
Yeah. So like, how often do you really find yourself playing with like motifs? Because I feel like that's something in modern music a lot of people don't really use that much.
On that record, it was a lot. There's a lot of repetition on that record. Yeah, that was like a conscious thing. We really liked doing that.
Do you still find yourself like playing with that, or is that kind of like that kind of group just that creative force around there?
Yeah, I haven't found myself inspired to do that as much as I've gotten older. If I ever have, I think it's been a little bit more subtle. But yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things. I feel like sometimes people don't believe me, but it just very organically happened when we were making that record. It wasn't forced at all. It would almost be like magic, where working on one song, it would be like I would almost accidentally play a melody from another song, and then I'd be like, wow, that really works. And then it also means that this lyrical idea can come into this context. and then I'd be kind of moved by that and just go for it. So I think had it been planned out, it probably would be a lot more clunky. But because it happened pretty naturally, I think it worked out.
Yeah, that's awesome. Also, sorry, I just went back through and I found the exact part of the album where my friend was like, "What musical are we listening to?"
Oh, nice.
It was around 140 on "Can't Run Away" when you're like a jumper with a bracelet.
Let me. I can bring this up.
And there's this like jingly like bell and.
Which song is it? Sorry.
It's around 140 on "Can't Run Away."
You're gonna make me listen to it?
Like this part, this is the exact part, yeah, where my friend was like,
what?
Yeah.
Oh, I can hear it.
I mean, this would be a really sad musical.
Yeah. But I think it's just that like really bouncy.
I can see like, it's like right after a sad moment happens in between a song, and now everybody leaves and it's the main character. It's just this light shining on him. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see it.
Well, I mean, maybe fuck a Brave Little Abacus reunion. I'll just write a Brave Little Abacus musical.
Okay. Speaking of musicals.
Go on. Hang on. Sorry, Rick. The first thing I just wanted to say, you should do a Mamma Mia type film, but instead of ABBA, it's Brave Little Abacus. Anyway,
that would be crazy.
Freaking Kendrick Lamar, his last album, Mr. Morale, a lot of it really plays out as a musical, just structurally, how it is. And I want, like, all I want is for him to put a full-on production, like on Broadway or something, because I can 100% see every scene that goes throughout it.
That record could be a movie. When I first heard that record, I was like, this could be a film. Like,
so Sufjan Stevens is literally doing that right now. He got Justin Peck, who's a ballet choreographer. I think he's maybe done a few Broadway shows. I'm not sure, but they're literally putting on a production of Illinois, like right now.
Oh,
that's wild.
And yeah, it'd be really cool to see more albums get that kind of a treatment.
Hey, I'd very much look forward to seeing that happen. Maybe hope this is a nugget planted in.
maybe that's the next big thing. Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, as people, you're still recovering from, COVID's impact on the arts and going out. Maybe as people feel that need to go out more. Hey, I want to go out and see a music, but concert's one thing. Let's try a musical.
Yeah, exactly.
One thing I wanted to ask is like, I mean, so obviously, whenever people reach out to you with these kinds of like interviews, whatever, it's probably mostly influenced by Brave Little Abacus, because that's like the bands that really like became that cult classic. But like, what, like your other projects? I guess I wanted to ask, like, do you have anything like coming up with me and Capris that like you wanted to talk about or discuss, or?
Yeah, I mean, we've been working on a record for a long time.
I noticed you guys had a new single.
Yep, we put out a single in the spring, and we had a little bit of a lineup change. Our longtime bass player left the band. We have a new bass player. So we're wrapping up recording this LP. That it's kind of like, it's interesting. We've been building out this studio for a couple of years. So we were like, as the record has progressed, so has the space itself. So there's a lot happening, but it just it's not one of those things that's super like public, you know what I mean? It's more like personal development. It's super exciting. I'm in love with the material, and the band's going strong. And I'm hoping for a lot more projects to get completed out of this studio space, and hopefully getting some other folks to track in there too as it gets finished, which is nice. So
how would you describe the record that you're working on at the moment?
It's interesting. It kind of, I think it's going to really surprise people because I think there's this notion about me and Capris that we're sort of this like poppy, rock band, which we are. But because we've put so much time and effort into this record, it's arranged a lot differently than the music we've put out so far. The instrumentation's a lot bigger. It's a little bit more sophisticated. So I don't know. It's a big pop record. I'll say that.
Okay, that sounds cool.
So I'm interested in what people will think.
I think pop as a quote unquote genre just gets a really bad rap. I think you can do a lot with trying to get into the catchy pockets because it's not locked to a certain sound. So I like the idea of big pop.
Yeah, me too. And it's funny because I think the way that I use pop in music sometimes is a little bit different. Like, do you know the band XTC at all?
XTC?
No,
I don't.
Only the Kanye West song.
Yeah. So I mean, XTC was like a really pretty important. Some people would say post-punk band from the UK, but they infamously have a song from their first or second record, "This Is Pop," and they were like a super angular, intense band. But the song "This Is Pop" was sort of like announcing, like, no matter how weird it is, this is pop. It's populist art, and I believe in that. Like, I don't care how like weird Black Midi is. Like, they're a pop band.
Well,
like
I mean,
that's populist music. It's not. It's not avant-garde. Like,
Yeah, like I think for me, like Kanye West is a great example of that because obviously one of the biggest rappers of all time, and you listen to his album Yeezus, and there's a few songs on there that are much closer to a band like Death Grips than to an artist like Drake. But I still argue, that it's popular music. Like even though Bound 2 is experimental as hell, it still has 800 million plays on Spotify.
I don't think pop is a sound. I think it's a function. I genuinely believe.
What are the people talking about?
Yeah. And for me, it's music is a form of communication, and like folk music before it, and like classical before that, which people didn't call classical. You know what I mean? That's like that's a young word. If music is made for a mass of people to communicate with, then it's populist at its center. Like, it doesn't matter if it's Carly Rae Jepsen or Sonic Youth. It's popular music. Like, it's what it is. So.
Have you listened to any of Carly Rae Jepsen's newer albums?
I heard.
She's
I heard the newest one, I think.
Yeah, she's a pop artist that's undergone a massive critical sort of reappraisal. I know her 2015 album Emotion has been sort of held up as like an absolute like classic of like 2010s pop music.
I love that record. Yeah, I think that record should be as heralded as like Teenage Dream by Katy Perry. I know, like in a lot of like pretentious music nerd circles, like it's like Emotion is held up as an album that is like a work of art beyond just being like by the Call Me Maybe girl. So I feel bad for her. I mean, I think she got kind of a raw deal with like that song got huge, and then she had a little bit tougher time. But I mean, that record, Emotion's a great record. I like the one after it. I can't remember its name right now, but I think it was the follow up to that.
Is it called Dedication?
Let me see if I can pull it up. It was. I haven't listened to it as much, but I remember.
There was Emotion, dedicated side B, and then The Loneliest Time.
I think I'm thinking of Loneliest Time.
Yeah,
which is interesting. But I mean, she's great. Like, I mean, it's such a tough like micro industry, at the very tippity top there. Like the
like
competition is just
so
like oh, what?
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, talking artists, I feel really bad for Godier. Is right up there for me.
Great example. Yeah. Yeah, that's a
Um,
great example of an artist that, like, who knows what else they would have done had
because
they not been kind of swallowed up.
because so Godier like was he was popular in Australia like long before somebody that I used to know came out. He
Yeah.
had a song in 2005 called Heart's a Mess. And we
Mhm.
have a yearly vote in Australia called the Hottest 100, where we vote for the hottest 100 best songs of the year on our most popular radio station. And he had a song called Heart's a Mess that did quite well on that in 2005 and whatever. And he, was like pretty, like big in Australia. And then that song came out and just blew the lid off of his popularity.
Yeah.
And then he pretty much just hasn't. I don't know whether it's from the pressure because he does still perform. He's in a band called The Basics.
Oh, cool.
That are still releasing music to this day. They're fine. I think he worked much better as a solo artist. But I wonder for him if there's just so much pressure. It's been 12 years since that song came out, and it's like one of the most popular songs like ever written. And I just wonder, like, particularly from an artist like him that comes from an indie background, that he wasn't a pop artist before that song came out. Whether I wonder how it must feel for him to be like, do I release an album that will be commercially successful to follow up on that, or do I stick to my like indie sort of underground roots and do something a bit more alternative again?
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, who knows, like, especially if he didn't hope for somebody I used to know to have that path, it's like it's tough.
Yeah, and because that's the thing is, like, if you're like, a Miley Cyrus or a Katy Perry and you have a smash hit that blows the lid off your career, like it's not easy to follow that up, but you can.
It makes sense. It's a pipeline.
It makes sense for them to continue making more pop music like that because that's what they were going to do, whether that song blew up or not, right?
Yeah.
Whereas for Godier, who was making quiet, niche, not commercially viable music before that song blew up, I feel like it would be such a conundrum. Do I keep making niche, inaccessible music, or do I try and soften my sound now that I have this fan base, I guess, that are into pop music?
Yeah, I mean, at that point, if you don't want to do it too, I mean, you would hope that he made enough of a living to just enjoy making music. It's like, that's okay too.
Like hearing that he still performs, like it's good that didn't like scare him away from being like a figure in music.
Yeah, for sure.
He still performs. He actually performed as Godier in Tasmania, where I live, 2 or 3 years ago. He double headlined a music festival with Godspeed You, Black Emperor.
Oh, cool. That's quite a pairing.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And I remember I was 17 and the concert was 18 plus.
Oh, damn.
No. Because I really wanted to see Godspeed You and I really wanted to see Godier. And it was just mad disappointing.
I got my fingers crossed it'll happen again. I believe.
Yeah. It's more if it's realistic for anybody, you're in Australia, so you got it.
Yeah. Yeah. But I was quite bummed though because what Godier performed, he didn't perform his own music. He performed like a tribute to like some French like electronic musician.
It still must have been
dope,
though, right?
I mean, I presume it was. I obviously didn't go, but yeah.
How'd you hear about that then? Did you just see it online?
Yeah. So we have this. We pretty much only have one festival we have 2 festivals every year. They're run by the same museum, and they do a winter festival and a summer festival. He played at the summer festival, but they've had like Swans, Death Grips, Flying Lotus, Injury Reserve, Lingua Ignota, Moses Sumney, Shoo Shoo, Boris, just shit tons of like really cool, like again, like where I live is like very out of the way, like regional. Like most people who live here would probably be farmers, type place. So it's insane that we have a festival that gets those kinds of.
Yeah, that's a lot of cool acts. Yeah.
Like, and when they got with Death Grips as well, it was 2012. So they weren't even like that, like up there. Yeah, which
that was the beginning. Yeah.
Like insane. But yeah. Anyway. What's the time? 12:30. Well, I think unfortunately, I just had a look at the time. Unfortunately, Rick and I, we do have another segment of our show that we do have to get to.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for doing this, and really, really appreciate it.
Appreciate you taking your time.
So we're gonna upload this on Spotify on the weekend as well.
So thank you. If you're listening to this after the fact, thank you for listening to the Neighborhood Radio again with Adam Demirjian from Brave Little Abacus. Me and Capri. Keep your eyes on the lookout for what's coming up from them. Again, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
No problem.
Of course. Thank you.
See ya.
See ya.